Okay, hello. I'm going to review the Odyssey, the 2026 movie by Christopher Nolan. I don't even know where to begin. There's been so much controversy, so much anticipation. I'm going to try to review it. I'll do like a kind of a non-spoiler version and then spoiler, and I want to address the controversy. I was actually about a week ago, I was thinking of making a video addressing the controversy because it annoys me so much. Maybe I'll just say this. I don't know, but I also don't know if this camera is in the right spot. I feel like I'm too far away. I don't know what I'm doing. And you can see this is a mess. I have a 3D printer and piano, but like whatever. This is not even a webcam. It's just my phone. Anyway, hopefully the sound's decent. So what was I gonna say? Yeah, the what I'll say, I think Nolan is so far ahead of the game. Like, I think this movie really is. It's out. I saw it 2 days ago on IMAX. It was phenomenal. I don't think it was like perfect. I'll get into some things, but amazing. One of the best movies I've ever seen. I think it's now. I've put it already in my top 20 or so movies. Maybe it'll go up. Maybe it'll go down as time. We'll see. I'll probably see it again at some point. But I think Nolan is so far ahead of the overwhelming majority of filmmakers and just even the audience. I think he's very respectful to his audience and he's very passionate, and it comes through. I'll get into the movie and why I think it's good, and then again, more spoilers and more analysis later. But it's so frustrating, the criticism. People who have no clue, no respect for cinema, no respect for not like as if he's some random person. I'll get into that later, but okay, so let's put it this way. In terms of, and I'm not going to spoil anything yet. Hopefully, I'll put time codes in if I get a chance. I don't know if I'm going to edit the video though. But so I think there's four major strengths to the movie. The way I would break it down. One, let's start. First one I would say is the visuals. Just overall, I've got IMDb open, I think, and I can look at some of it just to remind me. But like the boat on the water, there's so many shots of the ocean, and just I think some of it was shot in Morocco, maybe some was shot in Greece. I don't know that it matters. It looks really interesting. It's visually rich, like including special effects. I don't think it's a spoiler to say, there's a cyclops. There's some supernatural elements, and I think they look at least very interesting. A lot of that you could do it differently, but it looks interesting. Lots of parts where you could freeze frame it there, and it's like a really great like painting or photo or something image. The locations are gorgeous. I think the way it's filmed for the most part is very good. I think Nolan's pretty patient. He doesn't just rush the camera, and he uses establishing shots. He lets you feel these places, and it looks phenomenal. Just visually, even if you had no sound, it's an experience, right? I think, and especially on IMAX, or I think any cinema, it's like looks majestic, looks incredible. That's one big strength. Another strength, or something I would focus on, is the score. In fact, I may as well, I don't know the order I'll address the controversies, but one of the comments some people made is, oh, they're not using a symphony or they're not using an orchestra for the movie because came up. And part of the logic that I think Nolan presented was this idea of like they didn't have violins, they didn't have trumpets back then, they didn't have a conventional orchestra back in ancient Greek times, whenever exactly it's set, I don't even know, but thousands of years ago. And I think people have misinterpreted it. I don't think the argument is any movie that's old has to. It's like when you're making a movie, you want to make creative choices. And here, there's an interesting choice. What do we want to do with music? And it's an interesting idea. What if we only used instruments that the people back then would have actually heard, that Homer heard? With this one thing, I should admit, I know nothing about the history. I'm very ignorant. I feel like I've seen Jason and the Argonauts. That feels similar. Some of the Sinbad movies feel similar, like in terms of like Cyclops and like I don't know, Sirens. I'm just mentioning general supernatural harpies and other like gods, and like I have no idea. Even Achilles, like was he real? Was this Troy battle? I don't know. I don't want to get too sidetracked. I have no idea how much of that was real, but Homer I think was real. So, but the thing is, using instruments that existed back then, I started to realize during the score that like you can still do a lot. Like, you can play every note. You still have like horns. You still have guitar type things. Maybe it's a lute, whatever. And you have other weird sounds. In any case, the soundtrack is very interesting. And I think, again, those criticisms are just moronic. You haven't even seen the movie. It's an interesting choice. It is a restriction in a way, but that is often what leads to really interesting stuff. And that the score is very intense, very like heavy, and it adds a lot. I don't know that every part I love. It's like, I think John Williams is probably still a better, composer. His scores are more rich, but Ludwig Göransson is interesting, and the score is interesting. The score is one of the strengths. It's doing a lot. It's very present. It makes bold choices, often very loud, very throbbing. That's one thing I would want, especially maybe some older people. Like, you might want, maybe earwax, like something, or earplugs, just because it is pretty loud sometimes. And I didn't understand every choice, but it's bold, and it's the kind of thing I respect. It's not just to buy the numbers. It's not boring. Actually, I'll compare it to Troy, but I'll get to that later. So the second thing was the score. The score is a strength. Visuals are a strength. The score is a strength. The next thing, the acting. I actually think the acting might be the biggest strength of the Odyssey. There's so much of it, so many parts where it's just close up or medium close up, like roughly this distance or even closer. And it's just very intense performances. I think the script is very tight. Nolan's very good at, very good at multiple things, very good at casting, which I'll get into, and then giving people good lines and freedom. I think he respects his actors a lot and lets them find things. He doesn't feel like he restricts them. He knows what their strengths are and lets them dig into the material. I think maybe Anne Hathaway is the standout, but so many of them are so good. I feel like she's almost guaranteed an Oscar. I don't usually care that much about that stuff, but I feel like there's already going to be discussion. So let me see. Like, Robert Pattinson was really, really good. It's really cool that his career's taken off again, being in Tenet, which was Nolan, ever since the Twilight movies that he's more associated with. Tom Holland was very good. I think Tom Holland is not the strongest actor, in my opinion. I don't think he's like great in the Super Spider-Man movies, but he's perfectly casting. I think he fits the role. He's got the right qualities. I really like him. And Zendaya's good, even though that's another thing I don't want to spoil, but some of them, the role is not as big. Like, so Lupita Nyong'o is fine. She doesn't have that big a role. I didn't think she was like amazing, but I was happy with the casting. Elliot Page I thought was very good, but a pretty limited role, but very, very good. Impressed me. And John Leguizamo is really good. Matt Damon, of course, is very, very good. I kind of feel like he's playing himself to some degree. I don't feel like he's like transforms into a completely different person, but he's right in the role and he does a really good job and carries the film. Like, I can't even think who else is in it. The Himesh Patel, I don't know if he maybe has Indian background or something. But he's really good. That's another thing. I didn't care about the race. This is supernatural. Maybe I should quickly address that. So one of the criticisms was, and because again, I had this opinion before I saw the movie, that, Nolan is, oh my God. Okay, let's just get into the controversy because I want to address this stuff. It drives me nuts. There were a bunch of things. One thing people have said is it's a humiliation ritual. Nolan's just trying to appease the Academy, and this drives me nuts. I warn you, I might end up swearing. I might say words like retarded. I just mean stupid. This is some of the dumbest stuff I've ever heard, where it's like, the thing is, Nolan's last movie was Oppenheimer, right? 3 years ago. It's like people have forgotten. That one, I'm pretty sure, I'll double check, Best Picture, Best Director. So he already won an Oscar. So this idea that he's just trying to fit... And Oppenheimer is one of the widest male centric movies ever made. I think that's fine. To me, it doesn't matter. It's about the story. It's about the characters. Anyway, you can be a woman and watch Oppenheimer and be, completely immersed, right? I don't see why not. You can be black and be inspired by Oppenheimer and think it's great. The acting is great. And, aspire to be someone like Oppenheimer or like a scientist or whatever, right? The same with Dunkirk. Dunkirk was amazing. The entire cast is male. There's one or two females barely have speaking parts, and it's almost entirely white as well, but it's accurate. It doesn't matter. But the point is, Nolan doesn't compromise. He doesn't do something like Hamilton. Hamilton I find quite offensive, right? Where you take the founding fathers that, obviously were white. To me, again, that's not what defines them, but to deliberately go out of your way to cast exclusively black people, Latinos, Asians, just to make a point, and they would never dare accept the opposite. I do hate that. I'm very critical of a lot of the work stuff, but I think people miss the point. The point should be, you should never be casting a movie based purely on race. You should be casting good actors. You should be casting people who fit the role, people who fit the story. You should be making a story that is compelling. You know, if I think of something like The Dark Knight, I don't think of all the races of the characters, or The Godfather. It's, you know, I guess Italian Americans. I don't care. I care about the family, the characters, their motivations, the events that occur, the choices they make, and how good the acting is. Not these, yeah. So, and I just think this. I'm consistent with this. With something like the Odyssey, yeah, it's a classical story. Okay, I don't know much about it. I don't care. I don't see it as. I guess obviously on some level it's Greek, but so what? It's universal. It belongs to. It's, you know, it's well past the public domain cutoff. It's been more than 75 years. I'm pretty sure. Hopefully, so this belongs to everyone. Anyone can make a version of the Odyssey. It's a bit like with Shakespeare. You're going to say everyone, like, obviously that has its sort of dialogue, but in Africa they could do Shakespeare. In France they can do Shakespeare. It can be translated to French. Like, you know, it's something like West Side Story is based on Romeo and Juliet. You can take a story and change the place. In this case, to me, the Odyssey, the way, again, let me just, like, I don't care what other people think. Nolan should do this. You should have to do this. Like, no. Again, I'm going to swear. Just shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're doing. Nolan is one of the best filmmakers ever. Arguably the best director working today. He knows what he's doing. It's not like Odyssey can only be done in one way. And to me, the way he sets it is kind of interesting. It's a weird compromise where, to me, it's timeless. Maybe I don't want to spoil. Well, maybe I may as well say it. Just at the opening, it says in a time of apparent magic, which is like very interesting to me. It's like kind of, it's quite vague, and it kind of has a, I don't know. The word apparently, I usually think of like apparently is very casually. Apparently, like I didn't notice that apparent obviously relates to appearance, appear, apparition. And even transparency, I think relates. Apparent, transparent. But it's this, like, a time of apparent magic. So it's like, seems to be magic. We can't explain it. And of course, that's the other thing. This is so exciting. Nolan never before had done fantasy. Never. He'd done sci-fi. He obviously does things that push the boundaries of what's real and what's possible. But he's very grounded. That's part of why I was so excited for this. When someone like that does fantasy, they do it in a way that's very consistent and very, like, the rules are clear, and it's not just like messy, and it's pretty limited where he only uses it when he needs to. And he, you know, yeah, I'll get into more of that later, I think. What else was I going to say? Okay, let's address, like, say, Lupita Nyong'o. Obviously a black woman, I assume some kind of African background, as Helen of Troy, and she's the woman that... Look, I rewatched Troy. Diane Kruger's in it. I didn't think she was the strongest actor. She's obviously generally attractive, but I don't watch movies just, oh, there's one hot person in it and now I like it. It's like the movie has to be good. And like, I don't personally find Lupita super attractive, but she's obviously an attractive woman. And her race is not relevant. Nolan can do what he wants. He does a version of the Odyssey, which is, I think, in kind of an abstract time. And I don't think he's going for diversity, I don't think, but I just don't think he cares. It's fantasy. So he's not trying to honor, or everyone has to be Greek, everyone has to be white. It's an abstract world. And I think he's just casting phenomenal actors. And I think what he goes for with Helen, I don't know much about the story. It's a bit different. But she delivers what she needs to. I think Lupita Nyong'o was very good in it. I wouldn't change her. It wasn't my favorite part, but I think it achieved what it was going for. And the same with Elliot Page. I feel very mixed about trans stuff. It's like, it's way too much to get into. But I think the risk is, like, you've got to treat people as individuals. I think there's way too much trans stuff in the sense of there are children, teenagers that are being pressured into stuff they're not ready for. There are kids that are a little bit confused about identity, and then they're like, yeah, here, take these drugs and you're trans, and like transition, and it's very unhealthy. I think the overwhelming majority of people, you are what you are. You're male or you're female, and you need to get used to it and accept your body and embrace it. And it can be very good. There's so many pros and cons, but you can learn to be very happy. Now, having said that, gender dysphoria is a real thing. I don't know how common it is. Maybe, I think it's very, very rare. But in any case, Elliot Page is a person. I feel it's a bit awkward. I don't agree with this dead naming stuff in terms of, like, if you say Ellen Page, that's dead naming. What do you mean? Ellen Page is dead? No. Ellen Page became Elliot Page. I really liked Ellen Page in Inception. I thought she was really good. and seemed pretty happy, normal, feminine. So I don't know what was going on. But in this movie, if I didn't know Elliot Page, I would have thought, I probably would be like, he's a guy. He has a deep voice, and I would call him he. Again, some people will staunchly say you shouldn't give in to this, illusion, and other people be like, you have to absolutely say this stuff and all these rules. Like, everyone can go fuck themselves. Stop trying to control these things. The trans issue is tricky. Try to be nice to people. Try to be reasonable. But look, if you look like a man in a wig, then people are going to call you sir, and you can say it's ma'am. It's like, that's not going to work. I don't think trans women should be in women's sports. There's a lot of things. I don't think trans women should use women's bathrooms, right? I think that's wrong. But to me, this is different. This is acting. Anyone can play any role. I'll go along with Elliot Page. He is very good in this movie. The acting is really good, and it suits the role. He's not playing Achilles, right? And yes, he used to be a she. It's a bit awkward. I don't think literally he's a he now, but I'll try to go along with it. Again, anyone wants to get offended, just go fuck yourself. Honestly, I don't care. There's way too much of people, one way or the other, saying, no, it's not for you to control other people's minds. There are men and women. It is binary, but having said that, some people are a bit weird, and if there's something that works for them, fine. So I don't see a big issue, but yeah, Elliot Page, I think, is well cast, really good. So I don't know how Nolan saw that. It's also a pretty small role, and that's the other thing. One of the things I really respect about Nolan, the trailers for his movies usually give away very little. So I love that, because then you watch, one or two trailers, teasers, you get pumped, and then you watch the movie and there's so much more. Like, I think one of the teasers like barely shows a shadow kind of like the Cyclops, and there's like maybe implications of a couple things. A big chunk of the movie you haven't even seen. You have no idea what is going on. And the movie itself was just so exciting to watch all the different parts. So, okay, what other controversy? Authenticity. I don't think I need to say much about that. There's people saying, why would you say dad? And it's like, look, again, you can read the text in original Greek if you want. You can watch a Shakespearean play with all that pretentious 1500s English that doesn't even make sense. Actually, I was thinking, like, what if they did that as a joke? Like, back then, they actually spoke normal English as well, but they were like, why don't we just, like, put E's on the ye olde English and like just make stuff up just to like confuse people generations down, and they all just went along with it, and people were like, what the fuck does this mean? And it's just like, no, go along, it'll be really funny. I feel like it could be an elaborate prank, but like there's lots of ways you can get that kind of fancy. To me, what matters with the Odyssey, with Nolan's Odyssey, is it engaging, is it immersive? And it's like, yes, more than almost anything I've seen. I was so engaged. Is very efficient. His filmmaking, just overall the smoothness of his filmmaking is so impressive. Like the editing, the pacing, the way it, something like a character will get mentioned and then we cut to that character and it feels like it flows. We're really, it's kind of, this is a sort of a linear movie, but there's a lot of flashbacks and there's some amount of things happening in parallel. He's done a lot of that kind of thing. He's very masterful at it. I don't think he overdoes it here. I think he does it in ways that make sense, but also bring things together. And I think it's actually one of the most accessible movies he's made, one of the easiest to follow, because some of them, like Tenet, is super confusing. I should maybe mention as well, just for context, I'm kind of a Nolan fanboy. So like Insomnia and Following, I would give maybe 8 or 9 out of 10. All the rest of his movies, 10 out of 10. Which, again, 10 doesn't mean perfect, it just means very good. The Batman trilogy, I love. The Prestige is great. Memento, Interstellar in some ways I don't like as much, but it's still phenomenal. I still give it 10 out of 10. It's like so well made. And Oppenheimer's great, and Dunkirk, Tenet, yeah, all of them. Inception is insane. Like so far, like really, really thought-provoking. And the Odyssey, I think, is up there, one of his best. But again, maybe I'm not useful because I just love everything he does. But when I say that, it's still challenging. So, like, for example, at the end of the movie, there was, some people applauded. I feel like that's a bit silly. Like, it feels like more of an American thing. It's like, and I get the appreciation. Like, yeah, that was good. But it's also like, he's not there. Like, no one in the movie is there to receive the applause. And it feels a bit gimmicky. And I was also just shocked. Like, I was in silence for 10 minutes or so, just sitting there contemplating and just like I like that about Nolan's movies. They're not just tied up in a nice little bow, like, you know, fuck yeah, that's the end, done. I fully understood it. It's more like it ends and I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm like, and then I'm thinking about it and piecing it together. So I'll get into spoilers soon. But okay, let me just check any other. Yeah, I think the other criticisms were just moronic, but yeah, or things like costumes. Again, I found it very engaging. I think a lot of people didn't understand what they were seeing was what the context was. You know, again, Lupita has a small role, Elliot has a small role. They're very good in those roles, what they're doing. Some of the costumes, like some of the photos that were released are like they're training, or it's like the big battles I think are very engaging. So let me go back. For the non-spoiler, the visuals are amazing. The music is very interesting, original, heavy, really, it's intense. It's an intense thing. It's really, ambitious. And then the acting is phenomenal. Like just to appreciate acting, it's just good acting. Lots of interesting choices by the actors. They really dig into it. A lot of just like even just human emotions, just like you know, disdain and like anger and sadness. It moved me to tears as well. It's actually, well, I don't want to spoil, but there were some parts that were just very, very nice, very warm. I'll get to that. But the fourth one I wanted to mention is just the sheer like vision of Nolan, the filmmaking efficiency. It's so masterful. Again, you might not like every choice. Why does that look that way? Or why are we focusing on this? Why did this part of the original story get changed? What is Nolan trying to say? I can understand there's room for disagreement there, but his skill and his discipline and the fact that he's always trying to go for something is there, and I greatly appreciate that. Maybe I'll just briefly compare it also to Troy before I get into spoilers. I rewatched Troy 2004 recently. I won't do like a full review of that, but my issue with that, it was just a bit boring, and I couldn't tell, like, am I meant to be going for Troy or Agamemnon and the Greeks, whatever? And I didn't know, because they're like both good and they're both bad. Like, it's not clear what their motives are. Who are they? What do they stand for? And kind of the just Orlando Bloom going off with Helen of Troy just felt a bit like, I don't buy that. Like the face that launched 1,000 ships. It's like, if you are a man, you should have self-control. And if you're rich, like, you have access to all these women and maids or whatever anyway. Like, I don't understand. There are plenty of women that are attractive. And if you have even any level of self-discipline, self-control, loyalty, like if you're married or something like that, or other higher values, the idea of one face, one woman who's attractive, and you're just going to sacrifice, like, I just don't, to me that's stupid. It just makes you look like a moron. Some of the fight scenes in Troy were good. I think Brad Pitt was a decent actor, but I didn't like Achilles. He's like a diva in that movie. And that movie is so ironic. It has a song at the end in the end credits called Remember. And like, I completely forgot that was the song. And that's the whole theme. And that movie was so forgettable, ironically. The song at the end, Remember, is not bad, but like, yeah. And the costumes are okay, but that movie I thought was dull, and a lot of the acting was weak. So in my opinion, Odyssey is way better. If you like Troy, it's fine. I think I gave it maybe 6 out of 10. I was kind of glad I rewatched it. It was okay, but I think this is way, way, way better. Okay. Yeah, I think I should get into spoilers now. So I'm not even. So in terms of themes, I think the thing that really sticks with me is that ending of the seeing the Troy, the Trojan Horse, and it's like, it's very thought provoking. I need to rewatch it. So I don't think I'll spend too much time on this, because it's just like kind of starting to percolate or whatever, gestate in my mind, the themes. But I really like this idea of, he kind of plucks the bow. He has this instinct of giving a hint to the animal. Like, he wants a fair fight. He doesn't want a hunt. There's an interesting contrast there. And to me, I interpreted the theme a bit like, it's about being honest. It's about being upfront, not being a coward, right? And on some level, again, I don't know the context of all the Trojan War and the Trojan Horse. I think usually it's so famous, but we usually think of it seems like it's just this famous trick that, they just hid in a horse and treat it as a gift, and the other side took it in, and then they were able to come out and then open the gates and win. And it's like this very clever, risky, high risk, high reward trick that was used to win a battle or a war or whatever. But and usually people don't go further than that. It's just a clever idea, and it's like just the concept of a Trojan. I guess some viruses are like that, but just the pretending to be something else in order to get inside. But the movie kind of, it has a lot of like reference to Zeus's law, which I hadn't heard of. But basically, there seems to be a couple of iterations, so I'm not 100% sure. But one is, treat others as you'd like to be treated, which fundamentally I agree with. It's such a simple, universal principle that almost defines everything. You don't need any other moral principles. Just, you can't murder, you can't rape, you can't steal, you can't, assault people because you wouldn't want them to do that to you. It's a fundamental, universal law. You don't need anything else. Don't need to know race, sexuality, like anything, gender, doesn't matter. Just treat people as individuals. And another version of it though is like, even the poorest people, treat them well because maybe it's a god in disguise, which I thought was quite interesting because, we don't really have the Greek gods. I don't really believe in God, but you don't have to take it literally. But on the other hand, it might be a god in the sense of this might be someone who's actually very special. They might be concealing their identity. And that comes up in the movie a bit. Odysseus obviously conceals who he is at the end. And it's like also someone casual you meet might end up being really famous later on. That's possible. But yeah, that theme with it seems to imply that the Trojan horse itself was like a mistake in the sense of it let down this principle. It was cowardly, and you should be upfront about who you are. Again, it's a bit tricky because Odysseus does kind of use deceit, but I think it depends who you're using it against. But I like that, and I don't want to go too specific, but you think of certain wars and you shouldn't be saying, oh, we're going to offer peace and then commit one of the worst atrocities in history. You should not be attacking a country and then acting surprised when they retaliate. I think there's lots of different ways it can be interpreted, but just this idea, you should have honor, you should have dignity, you should be upfront. And I've had that personally as well, where it's like, at least some people are upfront about where they stand and who they are, and some people will stab you in the back. Some people do things, they don't have the decency, they don't have the balls, the courage to tell you what they stand for and who they are. And you have to be careful with stuff like that. Anyway, that's how I interpreted some of it. A lot of the stuff, I'll just maybe go through a few of the scenes, like the Cyclops stuff I thought was very cool. It looks so weird. It's like that, I think there's a famous image, maybe you could look it up, but it's the giant that's eating like a man. It's like a famous painting. There's a very disturbing image, and some of it looked like that. It was very, very weird. It wasn't, I liked that, where it was like nothing like I'd seen before, and lots of noise, lots of screaming, and it was kind of a bit funny the way the men kind of planned trying to get out. It is kind of a thing of like, they had no chance fighting. It's like basically you get grabbed and that's it. You start screaming and your head gets beaten off, that kind of thing. I didn't have too much to say. It felt exciting. It felt like it gave this impression of like it took a while. Very otherworldly and kind of leaning into horror a bit, which Nolan hasn't done before, really. Not that much. I can't even be bothered looking it up. I wear my ignorance like a badge of pride at this point. I'll learn more about it later, but the Lastrogonians, whatever, these giant silver guys, that was kind of weird, that little boy, but he's like their height, and it's like, if that's a kid, how big are they? And he just kind of screams. I don't think I've ever screamed like that ever in my life. I feel like girls can scream. I don't know that I can scream. Maybe boys can scream, but I don't remember doing that. But that was pretty brutal. And there's parts where you can see the trees moving, so I don't know if that's deliberate, if that's a reference, I'm not sure. It was quite weird, it was quite engaging. A bit depressing in some ways as well. Like, everything goes so badly in so many parts. It's very haunting, and the way they get away, but you see the other ships being shaken and beaten up, and like, just, that's terrifying as well. People twice your size, or it's like, you have basically nothing you can do. I did think it was cool that Odysseus fought one or two, but again, it was nice that it wasn't this kind of just silly, immature kick-ass, like he could just easily beat them. And that's another thing, the people who say, oh, this movie's work, it's like, how many female soldiers are in the movie? I remember seeing Wakanda Forever, and it has the men at the back, and the women go out and fight. It's like some of the dumbest stuff I've seen. That movie was very woke, I thought. But this is not. they're all male soldiers. Again, it's nothing. I have nothing against women, but practically speaking, if you want to win a war, you're going to send your women like you know, modern armies. You might have some here and there, especially in other roles like a pilot or something. I'm not like, oh, ban women from this or that area, but it's like practically speaking, there are fields where you want overwhelmingly males, and yeah. Anyway, this movie is accurate in that sense. There was that big one that, like, I forget what it's called, Scylla, the one that like plucks them out and goes back and hides. That was a bit weird, but like it was still exciting. And the whirlpool, I would have liked to have seen more supernatural stuff. The stuff with Samantha Morton and like warping, that was hilarious. It was obviously practical effects. It looked pretty cool. I wish they even showed more, because it feels still like you're only showing part of it, right? And I'm very aware of that. You keep cutting and each shot is only showing a little more, and then all of a sudden you just have they're straight up pigs. And it's like, I thought she was turning them into different animals, because we see the tiger and the lion and there's the panther. I don't know, are they gods? Like, I don't even, that's another thing I haven't looked up yet. I don't know if Calypso is a god. I don't know. May as well switch to that. But yet, like, let's say the special effects, I wish it showed more of a continuity. I feel like that could have been even more impressive. Like, can we do with practical effects? Can you turn, say, my face right now, morph into a pig and do it purely with practical effects? That's obviously extremely difficult. And the movie, while the effects are pretty cool, it's like it doesn't quite do that. And it's like, I did find the line funny about he's threatening the bird, the crow or whatever. And he's like, why do you have your sister like that? And it's like, we get along better that way. That was kind of funny. That felt kind of relatable. You think of lots of families where there's tension. It's like, just if it's believable that a witch would do something like that. But kind of scary as well. That kind of there's a movie, Witches, from like 1990. It was like quite scary, some of that concept. What else? So yeah, the stuff with the kind of twist at the end where you see Zendaya, I think it can be interpreted a couple ways. My interpretation was she is a priestess, like, or whatever, of Troy. She was just an innocent girl and they just grab her and then cut her head off, which is obviously brutal and evil. That's why it's also like, is Agamemnon a good person or not? Or are they just pillaging and killing people for the sake of it? I don't understand. So was Odysseus really a hero in this sense? And I don't know much about it. It's made me intrigued about the story. I'd have to me, it feels like it's a pretty good representation. Like, I learned a lot. And I'm really curious to learn more about the original story and different interpretations. But yeah, I'm a bit confused. So it's like, Agamemnon, is that group just bad? Or some people have said it's anti-war. I hate that idea. It's like, it's not like all war is good or bad, but certainly some of that is bad. But that was a very confronting image, and the fact that the statue gets the head cut off at the same time, and so you're visualizing that. You see that stone head, and now if I see that statue, if I see that poster, I'm going to think of Zendaya, that girl, getting killed, and the fact that she's kind of constantly there. So I don't know if she literally is Athena, or if he's just imagining, or others have interpreted it as she wasn't, like, that was just a representation, that when the statue was cut, he visualized that. I think it is that a girl was actually killed right in front of him, and then he's kind of carrying that guilt and reliving it and talking to her. And maybe he thinks of it as Athena, but I don't think it is an actual god. I think he's just imagining it, because I don't think we see any other gods. So that's my interpretation, but like, very powerful. In terms of specific characters, like, the part that moved me basically to tears, or at least like very emotional, was just the dog. When he comes back and pats the dog and the dog tries to wag his tail one more time, it was just very emotional, because I think it's something about dogs where it's their purity, their innocence, their loyalty. And that dog, you sense like it's getting so old, and that was, I wasn't sure about the suitors. I didn't think they were completely malevolent, but when you see the way they treat the dog, it's like, that confirms beyond anything else. These are horrible people. Like, I can understand if a beggar comes in and you're like, why are you letting that beggar in? He stinks. I can understand apprehension there. But when you treat a dog poorly, you kick a dog, that's just, there's something deeply wrong with you. That's messed up. and seeing that dog kind of hold out essentially to see its master return, and then it can pass away, and just that tiny little bit of happiness I found very moving. And the connection between Odysseus and Telemachus or whatever, Tom Holland, was really powerful. I really liked that father-son connection, and yeah, and I liked Anne Hathaway as well. And that final part was just like so great. Just seeing him basically, it felt like Batman. Like he's just fighting like 100 guys, and it's like Watchmen. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. And then they're kind of just the other guy knocking the weapons down, and then Tom Holland fights him. Just felt like it was a lot of payoff, a lot of catharsis, and felt like it really earned it. And like a lot of Nolan's movies, it kind of ticks all these boxes where it's like, it transcends. It's like, it lets you think he's dead, but no, he's alive, and he's going to go in exile. They're going to do that thing that they dreamt of, just sail to the west or whatever it was, into the sunset. And yeah, I just thought that was a nice ending. And then Tom Holland becoming king. Just trying to think what else. Yeah, John Leguizamo was really good. Himesh Patel was really good. A lot of the Sirens part was a little weird. I thought I wanted a bit more. Like, I felt like I couldn't see much. It was just a little too bizarre. And the fact that your kind of ears are covered, so it felt like a cop out. I can kind of understand it in a way; it's effective, but it also felt a little bit like maybe I wanted a bit more. Trying to think if anything else comes to mind. I don't know if there's much else to say. It's here are some images from the trailers. Yeah, people are saying Agamemnon was like aura farming the whole time. It does feel like that. I think the costume looks very cool, but there is this question of was he a good person or not, and that's where the issue with Troy was I didn't care that much. So I like that this movie focuses more on Odysseus and more on this kind of just epic journey and these events, and like a lot of it looked really cool. I really liked the white armor of the people in Troy. And it was very exciting, that kind of heist, getting the Trojan horse in and then coming out and sneaking around. And you're kind of like, you're going for them and then seeing that they killed people. And then you're kind of like, I don't like that. And it's like, so was the whole thing just bad? Like, what was was that just because of anger built up over years? Like, I'm not sure what to think. The stuff with the dog, I think, was the most moving. Again, the visuals, I'm just looking at stills. I think these are just from the trailers. I probably wasn't as impressed with Charlize Theron, but I felt like she didn't do a huge amount. But that was interesting with Calypso, where it's like he's, I guess, under a spell. He's kind of suppressing his memories, or I don't fully understand, but I did like that. Like, was interesting. Yeah, okay. I don't know if there's much else to say. It was one of the best movies I've ever seen. I think an issue is potentially it's maybe a bit loud for some people, but otherwise it's so accessible. It's so exciting. Nolan has things to say. It can be definitely interpreted in a lot of ways. There's a lot of lines, a lot of references to Zeus's law, and this idea, that theme of like giving a warning to your enemy, which I think depends, right? You don't want to give a warning if you're trying to arrest like a murderer, some really bad criminal. You're not going to give them a warning, but I just understand that notion of like trying to be upfront. I try to do that with people. I don't like to backstab. I don't like to gossip and spread word. If I have a problem with someone, I tell them to their face. I think that's key, and I feel like that's part of it. And just that idea of don't initiate violence, right? If others initiate violence against you, then you defend yourself. But just having that honor and conviction, and maybe also it's implied you should know what you're getting into before you help plan and carry out an ingenious military maneuver. You should know, what are we actually doing this for? Are we actually the good guys? Anyway, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Nolan. This movie is amazing. The criticism is so stupid. I think those people are so moronic. It's very frustrating because it comes from the right wing, and I think the left wing is often very stupid with a lot of their woke stuff and defending ridiculous things and being very dishonest. And for people on the right to kind of miss the mark this much, I think they'll be eating their words. Odyssey's already made tons of money. It's only been 2 days since I've seen it, but it already feels like a while, and feels like I'm kind of wanting to watch it again. It's a masterpiece. So I highly recommend it. Hopefully I might edit this down a little bit. It's like 40 minutes. But anyway, thank you for watching. Bye bye.